Life can take unexpected turns, but some stories of accidental deaths are so bizarre they defy belief. From freak mishaps to shockingly ironic twists of fate, these tales highlight how unpredictable and delicate life truly is. Join us as we explore the craziest, most unbelievable accidents that led to untimely ends. Arches National Park, a sprawling desert expanse in eastern Utah, is celebrated for its extraordinary rock formations and stark, breathtaking beauty. Covering over 120 square miles, its red sandstone arches and towering spires are a tribute to the forces of nature. Over 1 million visitors flock to this remote wilderness annually, drawn by the promise of peace, awe, and adventure. But for one couple, the park's allure became a cruel and tragic backdrop to an event that would change their lives forever. Esther Nakajigo was a shining light in her community. At just 25 years old, she had already achieved more than most do in a lifetime. Born and raised in Uganda, Esther, known as Essie to those closest to her, dedicated her life to human rights advocacy. Her work as a humanitarian leader and activist had saved lives and inspired change, making her a national treasure in her home country. Essie's ambition was matched only by her warmth and humour, a combination that captivated everyone who crossed her path. In June of 2019, Esther met Ludo Michaud, a software engineer from France, through a dating app. Their connection was instantaneous. Conversations turned into late-night calls, and within weeks, they knew they were meant for each other. In March of 2020, amidst global shutdowns and uncertainty, they refused to wait for the perfect time or place. They married in an intimate ceremony, promising to face life's challenges together. 1 year after their fateful first meeting, the couple decided to celebrate their anniversary with a road trip across the American Southwest. Their journey brought them to Arches National Park, a place Ludo had visited with his family years earlier. He had fond memories of its striking landscapes and was eager to share its wonders with his wife. The couple spent the day exploring the park's trails, marveling at the iconic, delicate arch and soaking in the beauty of the rugged terrain. After a long hike and a quiet picnic, they began their journey back to their car. The sun blazed overhead, and the desert winds howled through the rock formations. Ludo and Esther laughed as they recounted the day's adventures, unaware that their lives were moments away from a horrifying turn. As they approached the park's exit gate, the wind intensified, howling through the barren landscape. The metal gate, meant to regulate access to the park, had been left unfastened, a hazard waiting to be unleashed. Without warning, a powerful gust tore the gate from its position. The jagged metal swung with incredible force, slicing through the passenger side window of their car like a blade. The moment was over in an instant, but its aftermath was an eternity of horror. Ludo, disoriented and drenched in blood, looked to his right and found his world shattered. Esther's life had been ripped away in a single violent moment. Her bright future, her laughter, her dreams, all extinguished in an act of unimaginable brutality. Emergency responders arrived swiftly, but their efforts were futile. Esther was gone. Ludo, trembling and unable to process the nightmare, sat frozen in disbelief. For him, that moment would replay endlessly, the weight of its trauma haunting every waking hour. In the weeks that followed, Esther's remains were flown back to Uganda, where her family and community mourned the loss of their shining star. Her funeral was a somber affair, attended by hundreds who came to pay their respects. The young woman who had once inspired hope and change was laid to rest, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. But her family was not content to let her death go unanswered. They demanded accountability, pointing to the negligence that had allowed the unsecured gate to wreak such devastation. A simple $5 padlock could have prevented the tragedy. Yet this small, overlooked precaution had led to unthinkable loss. After 2 years of legal battles, the US government was held liable, and Esther's family was awarded $10.5 million in damages. But no sum of money could erase the pain or bring back the vibrant life they had lost. For Ludo, the scars went far beyond the physical. He struggled daily with post-traumatic stress, haunted by the memories of that fateful day. and the silence that followed. The wind still blows through Arches National Park, its haunting whispers weaving through the rugged terrain. For visitors, it remains a place of wonder and awe, but for Esther's family and Ludo, it is forever tainted. What should have been a celebration of love and life became a dark reminder of life's fragility. As we reflect on Esther's tragic end, we're reminded of how quickly life can change. But this isn't the only story of unexpected loss. Stay with us as we dive into another shocking tale, where a moment of negligence in a factory led to an unimaginable disaster. You won't want to miss what happens next. The year was 1998, and Harvest Time Bakery was alive with the hum of industry in the heart of Walsall. Over 400 workers were employed here, crafting loaves for supermarkets across the country. For the employees, it was a regular day in May, a day that began like any other, but would soon descend into unthinkable tragedy. David Mays, a 47-year-old maintenance man, arrived at work that morning, unaware that his life was about to take a devastating turn. Known for his diligence, David had been asked to assist with a particularly urgent issue. Overnight, a grid inside one of the bakery's massive 75-foot-long ovens had come loose. Management, eager to avoid costly delays, decided against bringing in specialists. Instead, they instructed David and another engineer to handle the repair themselves. As the workers prepared for the task, the atmosphere was tense. Management was adamant. "Every hour this oven stays off costs us over £1,000. We can't afford the downtime." To save time, they opted to access the oven through a narrow hatch rather than dismantling it properly. Industrial fans were set up to cool the oven, but the heat inside remained intense. By 11 a.m, the repair team suited up. Their gear, thin protective suits, gloves and helmets, was woefully inadequate for the task ahead. Armed with walkie-talkies, David and the engineer crawled onto the conveyor belt, which began to carry them into the oven. At first, everything seemed under control. Then, without warning, chaos erupted. Inside, the temperature was far higher than anticipated. The heat was suffocating, pressing in on them from all sides. Within moments, their protective suits began to sear against their skin. Over the radio, frantic voices broke through. "It's too hot! We can't breathe! Get us out!" The outside engineer positioned near the controls panicked. He scrambled to reverse the conveyor, only to discover that it was a one-way system. His heart raced as the desperate cries over the radio grew more urgent. "Help us!" came the final harrowing plea before silence fell. Inside the oven, the situation had turned catastrophic. David and his colleague were trapped in a nightmare of scalding heat. The conveyor belt carried them relentlessly forward, deeper into the inferno. Each breath was agony, the air itself feeling like fire in their lungs. Their attempts to move backward were futile. The belt's unyielding grip dragged them along, while the oppressive heat warped the metal walls around them. 17 excruciating minutes passed before workers outside managed to break open the oven with crowbars. The scene that greeted them was one of unimaginable horror. The engineer was pulled out first, his body unrecognizable from the burns he had sustained. Despite immediate efforts to save him, he collapsed and died on the factory floor, his suffering etched into every inch of his being. David was nowhere to be seen. It took hours for firefighters to locate and extricate his body from the machinery. When they finally retrieved him, the true extent of the tragedy became clear. The autopsy revealed broken bones, severe internal injuries and burns covering 80% of his body. His final moments were ones of unimaginable torment, the result of negligence and greed. Investigations later revealed that the oven should have been allowed to cool for at least 12 hours before anyone entered. Instead, it had been barely 2. The temperature gauge had clearly indicated over 100 degrees Celsius, a deadly environment ignored in the rush to resume production. The aftermath of the tragedy was felt far and wide. David's grieving parents sought justice, determined to hold the company accountable. The courtroom became a stage for exposing Harvest Time Bakery's culture of prioritizing profit over safety. Witnesses described a workplace where employees were pressured to take shortcuts, often at the expense of their well-being. The verdict was damning. Harvest-Time Ltd and its parent company faced significant fines, amounting to hundreds of thousands of pounds. 3 directors were personally penalised for their roles in the disaster, with one receiving a particularly heavy fine for overseeing operations that day. Yet no amount of money could undo the loss or erase the memories of that horrific day. Harvest-Time Bakery implemented new safety protocols in the wake of the tragedy, but the damage to its reputation was irreparable. By 2005, the bakery closed its doors for good, leaving hundreds of workers unemployed and a community grappling with the scars of loss. David Mays' life was cut short by a preventable accident, a victim of decisions that valued productivity over humanity. Those who knew him remembered him as a kind and hard-working man who deserved far better. His story remains a stark reminder of the cost of negligence, a tragedy that will not soon be forgotten. The factory, once a place of livelihood, became a haunting symbol of lives lost and lessons learned too late. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more from Horrendous Horror.